Welcome to the Infinite Star Connection podcast, the only one here right now with Vivian Chauvet and Jeff Demmers. Today we're pretty excited because we have a very unique episode centered around Humo, Humo the star nation that Jeff, my dear friend and co-host, are very much an expert. So let me to introduce today Jeff in a brand new light. Jeff has been studying the Humo since the early 1980s and is widely considered an expert of the Humo phenomenon, having researched and cataloged countless over 4,500 plus documents as amassed quite a library of information. Jeff has created the most extensive Humo dictionary to date with over 1,200 entries with ideograms and magic definitions. He understands the makeup of the language, symbols, phonetics, and has translated many rare documents from Spanish to French and English, and continue his lifelong dedication and research to the subject of the Umal nations. Jeff has published 7 white papers on the technicalities of the Humo and can be found at the academia.edu. He has deciphered an actual phone call from Spanish to English, which took place in the 1960s. Now, Jeff has been invited to join the research team at Rice University to have his documents and to organize it with Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens' archives and to complete his unfinished work titled UFO Contact from Planet Umo, Volume 3. So today, my dear friend and host, Jeff, this is the spotlight is on you. We are really intrigued. I am really intrigued by this exhaustive research and knowledge of this planet, Umo. So Umo, it's a planet. It's not a star nation, correct?
Yeah, it's what we call planet Ummo, but it's in the Virgo constellation, and
Oh, Virgo
yeah,
constellation.
it's way the hell out there.
Okay. I was under the impression that Umo was a star group or a civilization.
Well, that's what we call them. That's the closest pronunciation that we could uh, refer to them as. But if they hear them say it, it's like Umbo.
Umo,
Yeah, Umbo.
Umo.
Yeah,
Okay. I see. And so that's the closest translation we
right.
can have. I say ummo. That's the closest. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's fascinating. Now, this has been a long time coming for you. So how did it start? How did this adventure with this planet and the Virgo constellation started for you?
Well, it all started way back in the late '70s. Graduated from high school, and so start going out and doing things. And my sister was into the mystic stuff and everything, and we went to the store in a city called Troy, Michigan. It's called Middle Earth Bookstore. It was
Oh,
like downstairs in the basement type thing, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with you, whatever, you're okay, And so as she's looking at some books, I'm looking at some books, and I was always good with English, and I had high school Spanish was like that was it for me, right? So I came across this book that said UFO contact from the planet Umo, and it was Wendell Stevens' first volume one. So I just picked it up and I started looking at the symbols, and I really liked looking at the symbols, like what is behind me. And once I started, just going through it, I was just hooked. So I had to buy it. That was I wasn't intending to buy anything. I wasn't into that stuff, but I really liked this book, so I bought it. It was like $14, which was a lot of money for me back then. And I took it home, read it. I probably read that book at least 50 times.
Oh,
And
wow.
every time I got something out of it. So then I just, couldn't, now this is the early 80s. So there was no internet. There was nothing like that. So then I started looking at other bookstores and couldn't find anything related to Ummo. So that was my only resource. So I had to read that thing at least a dozen times to get it going. And then as the onset of the internet, which made searching for things a lot easier, what could be searched for because there wasn't a whole lot of information out there. But gradually, it actually became interesting, and I could find stuff quicker. I was using Alta Vista as my search engine way back then with CompuServe, way back then, and we was able to find stuff related to Ummo out of Europe. So that's how it all started for me, and just one thing led to another, and then I was contacted by this woman, Gemma Lozano from Spain. Was asked to join her think tank group about Ummo. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Who are you? So we got a good friendship going, and then it was she was tasked with this challenge to put all the this information that they had written up in letters and distributed around Europe and South America into a book form. So she actually did it. She showed me the email from them, and she asked if I could translate that book to English, but it had to be exactly the way that she did it. I'm like, okay, but understand that a paragraph of what you guys talk about can be done in a couple sentences in English, but one misspoken word can change the whole thing. Like we use checks and balances. Well, we all know what checks and balances are, but over in Spain, checks and balances mean let's go to the bank and write a check. So you had to be careful on how to understand what was being said, then put to the English form. I mean, every word. Now, you couldn't use Google Translate because you would come back with a bunch of gibberish. So it had to be done with every word, every sentence. I get it. Now I have to put it in the English form. And that book was 700 pages. Ooh, ooh. It took me about 2 years.
Oh, my.
Yeah, that was a lot of work, and I had said, well, the only way that I would sign up to do this, because this is a monumental task, is that I'll have some questions, but I need answers so I could understand it, so I could put it in English. So an arrangement was made where they would I would get not like into a trance state, but I would get into a state where I was, communicating with them, where they would communicate with me. There would be like a yellow light that would, it seemed like a yellow light to me, and like a shared consciousness. And that's the best way that I could describe it. And if I had a question, it was like I was like up in the air and they were like next to me looking down on what I was doing. So it's like they were right next to me. And every question I had, I wanted clarification. Well, then it came that all this technical stuff, I wanted them to explain it to me again. And that's why it took so long. But when it was done, it's like, God, I'm glad it's done. Then I wrote another small book about the everyday life on Ummo. No big thing. It's just a companion book, and anything that we would get would go to the cancer research in Spain. That was
Oh,
one of the
okay.
most important things that what they wanted, because we're not going to make any money on this. It's not going to be a bestseller, It's only going to go to like 0.0001% of the people. But until they come here and be acknowledged as uh, an extraterrestrial race, then you know once that happens, and people are going to be going to these books for clarification. And they explain it. They explain it pretty good to a T. I was just and it. I just had basic knowledge of Spanish, high school level. But when I was done, I got to be pretty good at it. I could read it, but if somebody wants to talk, and when they start talking, they talk fast, I'm gone. But they got to talk slow, and then I can get it. So basically, that's how it all started. And to this day, I mean, they're just a thought away. Trust me. And so, if there's any questions that I had or want to ask them, then they'll be right there. And they monitor everything. You know, they know that the information that I have is good. One of the things that I find funny about that is that sometimes they get these letters and they say, "Don't believe us. Research it for yourself.
Mm.
Don't believe anything we tell you because it doesn't work that way." Apparently, um, when you have these races that help along other races,
Yes.
you can't just spoon feed them everything. They've got to get it and learn it and apply it.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what they do. Is they I found mistakes basically in their math, how they do their base 12 math, um, mistakes in some of the words, and then I approached them on it. And they said that was intentional. I said,
Oh,
why? Why would you do that? It's so stupid. He said, no. This way, we know you know what you're talking about. You understand it. It's kind of a weird logic, but I guess there is some logic to that. And so don't believe everything they say. Kind of read it. I mean, if you're interested in it, it isn't for everybody. Trust me. This is not for the average person to say, "Oh, I think I'm going to learn Ummo." It doesn't work that way
mm,
because there's so much to learn, and they're very technical. That one graphic that I put out there of how we see the Earth, right? La la
right.
la la la. But how they see the Earth is all technical. Everything has got a formula, so they understand how the heat gets to the earth, and the oxygen coming in, coming out, the water, the flow, the grass growth, the depth of the grass, all that stuff. That's how they view everything. So
Would it be accurate to say that, the habitant, these beings from the planet Humo in the Virgo constellation, that they're more are, scientists oriented, or, whether it's mathematicals, physicists, science, would they be more oriented that way?
what we would call mathematicians and scientists, yeah, to them it's just every day. You know, they don't have humor like we do. They don't have the sports like we do. They're all scientific and very religious in their belief system. They don't like waste their time playing football or you know running around. They have their playtime, but it's nothing like what we do. You know, and it's one race on one planet. Where here they were mystified that there were so many different races on one planet. Who is in charge? So well, really, it depends on where you land is who's in charge, which they find that odd and rare, which I
Mhm.
didn't know that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, since you've been immersed in a research around this planet, Humo, and who they are, um, what can you tell us about what is it that you've learned the most so far with them? What really stand out for you?
What really stands out to me would be the way that I look at everyday life instead of taking stuff for granted. Wanting to know how things are. How does how does smoke travel in the air? You know, how do we get the heat? The sun doesn't give us heat, obviously, but how do we get the heat? What makes us warm on a sunny day? What makes us, because if the sun, if you get your warmth from the sun, then how come we have winter?
Right.
And the sun's in the same spot, and that little bit of angle of the earth is not going to determine heat. If we had that much heat, all the satellites would melt. If on the ground it's 110, up in space it's got to be hotter because you're closer. So why is that? How do we get heat here? And they explain all that in that book. They explain everything. They use a base 12 math instead of a base 10, which is a bit more exacting. When we do travel and stuff, we're going to find out that our base 10 is probably going to be off a little bit. But a base 10 works good here on Earth, but when you travel the stars, it's probably going to have to amp up a little bit.
Your take about linear time?
Pardon?
What's their take? What is their view on linear time here? Everything is linear, past, present, future. It's very linear. So what's their perspective on time?
I'm thinking their perspective on time is different for them, obviously. That's a good question. The only thing I can tell you is that they can tap into the Akashic record of the Earth, and okay, and I mean they're like thousands of years ahead of us, but they see us like they were, and we'll come to understand all that. But they don't use time like we do. They use the position of the planets for their time, I guess, as a better term. They go with cycles of the moon, planets. That's their time.
Yeah.
We're more definite. We need something to go from 1 to 12, whatever. They don't do that.
I can appreciate why they would have more of a natural planetary cycle perspective on how time is unfolding versus here. We are in this linear time construct. But because you've been immersed in their universe, so to speak, for so many years, what is it you've learned about them as a civilization? I mean, who are they? Do they have like a group name, like for example, the Sirians or the Lyrians or the Pleiadians? So I know the planet is called Ummo, or at least from what we've heard. But do they call themselves in a certain way, or how do they describe themselves to you based on your experience, Jeff?
They describe themselves like an Ummo. Okay, it's fine with them how we call them Ummo.
Mhm.
They will go with that. We call the planet Ummo because that's what they told us they were called, is Ummo. I don't know what they call their planet. It could be a number for all I know because they're big on numbers. But we use names for planets. They don't
No,
call the Earth the Earth. They call it, like 457J6 or something like that. That's how they refer to the Earth.
yes, I've encountered that with other species where they have different appellation or different way to catalog
Yeah,
planet they encounter. Yeah.
yeah. Just how we
I,
catalog certain planets by the number, they do the same thing. I would assume everybody would do the same thing.
it depends, but yeah, I can see why you would say that, especially from them. Okay. Well, that's a good question from Adrian, and I think it's see based on what you've learned, whether it's the Humo or your own experience, Jeff, and we can explore that question. Adrian is asking, is there any other world that experiences linear time like on this planet, like here, the way we experience linear time, to your knowledge?
I would say no, uh, because I know that, like, say 20 years here in the galactic time frame is like 30 seconds to a minute. So there's probably, in my estimation, a galactic time, and then there's the Earth time. All this stuff that's happening on this Earth, we see it as like, man, I wish they would come and help us out. They're not going to do that. What takes us 50 years is just a wink of an eye for them. It's like, we're not that important, for one. We blow ourselves up, but they're not gonna help us. So prevent us from blowing the planet up, because that affects them too. It affects a lot of the different planets around.
Hmm.
You know, so they have an interest in making sure we don't destroy the world. If we want to kill ourselves, that's up to us. Just don't mess with the planet. We have to come to that realization that, what, there's more than just us. We're nothing. You know,
Definitely, definitely. We are all part of this symbiotic multiverses of intelligence for sure.
right?
So, based on what you just shared, Jeff, Kathy's asking, so what do they call us then? How do they call other species or civilizations they come across, whether it's the Earth humans, whether it's others? Do they have the same way of putting numbers to a
No,
nation?
actually, when they first approached us, they would call us their brothers, because we're very similar to them. So they would just call us, "You're my brother," or the word that would mean brother. Okay, what we would call brother. Okay, they don't know us as Earthers or Milky Wayers or something like that. They don't know us as that. Just that, you're from, planet, say, like, 56-12, and he's our brother. You know, because they look like us and they behave similar to us in our past, so they can relate to that. They had a violent past, but they overcame it.
Wow, so they've learned from their past mistake and behavior and pattern.
Mhm.
Interesting. And they look pretty much like humans, correct?
Very close, yes. Very, very close. I mean, you wouldn't even recognize them, to be honest with you, unless you know what to look for. They got a very higher forehead and a slightly bigger, taller. But you wouldn't even reckon into it in a crowd. Forget it. You wouldn't even know.
Just like we do here, they're just a bit taller and they have a higher forehead, you said?
Yeah, and the skin is a little bit more tan, like more orange or tan or something like that. Um, so that's their telltale sign.
Yeah. That is
They, and
incredible.
they, they always travel in threes. They got two males and a female, and they
Always
travel the
actually,
space in threes. Yeah.
is there a reason for that to travel by three?
They just feel comfortable that way, so that, because they know that we're pretty violent people, and they are really not, but they protect their females, because there's one thing that we want to do. First thing we want to do, and you know what that is. So they know our tendencies, so they protect the female.
And to be protective of their females?
Yes, I mean, they sometimes emit a scent, so that is attractive. So
Hmm,
they make sure that there's enough protection around the female.
interesting. Okay. Curious here and also observation from the chat room. Have they ever walked here on Earth among humans, or do they just more observe or interact through either telepathic communications, or how do they interact with people here on the planet?
Well, they've been here since 1957 that we know of.
Okay.
They they landed in Spain because the terrain in Spain is very similar to their own planet. So they felt comfortable doing that, landing there. They know like the side of the mountains or whatever it is. It is very close to what they have, so they know how to move about it. But you know, but they also got robots or androids, whatever you want to call it, that would come out first and check around, make sure everything's okay, check the air density, whatever, and then they would venture out. Just how they first started. Then they went to the cities and picked up the language, and they were able to speak Spanish very very easily, quickly. Then they picked up the language of French very easily. you know, and then they just went to the different countries that surrounded that whole area, Germany and Holland, and made their way to South America. They were here in the States a couple times.
When you said they go to these countries, I can appreciate why they would send maybe a sentinel, like a probe, just to see the land or just recognize, kind of scout. So when
Mhm.
you say they're coming, as Holland, America, and other places, do they physically come, or they send maybe sometimes Star Nations or other interdimensional being will send some orbs of light just to connect to the planet? So what do you mean by they come? Are they physically landing?
Um, I have not known them to use an orb for recon. What they did is they made friends with the local townspeople, and then from there they used them to show them around, I guess you could say, to the different. And back then, you could go from country to country for the most part relatively easy, and that's how they traveled locally. When they would get their craft, and they would go to South America with their craft and set up a base there, a base of operations. They had one down in Antarctica. I
Oh,
would assume that they have already mapped the whole Earth, and I mean, they reached out to get this book done because they knew that most of the world speaks English, okay, but
okay.
they don't know English that well, so that's why they reached out and said, "Can you get somebody to translate it to English?" And then that's where I came about.
Oh, that's how you step up in that role of translating.
Yeah, but like I said, I wanted to make sure I had the one-to-one. I need to ask them specific questions that so I could understand the meaning so I could put it in the book.
Right, right. Okay. Now that's fascinating. And the symbol we see behind you, is that part of their language as well?
Yeah, that's part of their language. Yeah, some of them are upside down and backwards, but essentially that's okay.
You personally, Jeff, being involved with them, learning from their culture, translating such an exhaustive, amount of information and wording and semantics, all of it. What have you learned for you personally?
Just to look at the Earth differently.
Yeah.
Everything has got a life and an energy. Me, just you have to live your life, but knowing certain things, makes you look at stuff differently. You
Hmm.
know, just looking at life differently.
Differently in what way? Can you give us an example of what different perspective it brought you for you?
Um, let's see. How can I put this without getting too much in trouble? being patient with people. Let's put it that way. And because my path wasn't, I didn't have much patience with people, and I come to understand people better.
Helping you to understand others and maybe yourself in the process, perhaps.
What's that?
Helping you to learn about people, understanding people better, and probably yourself as well in the process
Yeah, to grow as a person.
to grow in this person.
Yeah.
So, would it be accurate to say that to grow as a person, so like the Humo, for example, or other advanced enlightened intergalactic groups, it is impossible for them to do everything for us, but they're here to assist us to grow, expand, and become our own being so we can regain our sovereignty and our empowerment. Would that be accurate to say?
Very close. They do share certain technologies that we use on a day to day. Like using light for information,
Okay.
storing information in crystals.
Hmm. Yeah.
While you can store information in a frozen crystal more than just a regular crystal. We know that quartz oscillates, but they showed how you can get a quartz to oscillate faster, by introducing certain frequencies to it without shattering the quartz. Um,
Point.
I think the CD-ROM came from that, and we
Mhm.
just took that information from light and stored it on a plastic disc, and that's how we got it. I'm not saying that they use CD-ROMs, but the idea
Mm.
of using light to transfer um, information was intriguing. They do know that we are a special race where we can back engineer rather quickly and figure stuff out. So they are very careful on what they can share because they know that they can't give us too much too soon because the imbalance of technology versus reality, you need that balance. You can't be too technically minded and you know have the world you know believe in other things because it all has to work together.
Are you saying that consciousness and technology has to work hand in hand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Even though that we possess a really good skill set of reverse engineering, they didn't think that we would get this far so quickly.
Mm.
So sometimes they have to put the brakes on things. When we send up rockets and stuff or whatever armament, they're around it and making sure that we don't do anything stupid. You know,
Well, the thing is that this kind of mistakes is part of the galactic archives. I know the Sirian understand that a lot about sharing technology and without interfering in natural organic evolution of a civilizations. It's never about interfering or preventing a civilizations from evolving, but rather assisting in an intelligent way. And the Syrians have learned from this, where technology was shared, advanced form of technology, but without having a consciousness to assist the wisdom, the maturity, and also the discipline to understand that technology, and it led to planet destruction. So, of course, it's not going to be repeated here. We're no longer in that energy. So, I can appreciate where they're coming from. Absolutely. That makes all of sense. Thank you, Jeff. There's a few great questions I'd like to read to you. Is that okay?
yeah, bring it.
Okay, so John is asking, could you please give us an idea of their mission here at the present time? What do they want to achieve? And if they intend to venture out into the public and be recognized as extraterrestrial? So what can you tell us?
Yeah, I talked to John quite a lot about this stuff, and They're here just to help humanity, guide humanity. Not they're not going to make it. They're not going to just give it to us. They're going to. We have to learn it on our own and understand it. Um, but they're going to be among us, but they're not going to. They're not going to be among us to change us. They're going to help us figure it out. You know, does that answer his question better?
Yeah,
The
sure
present
it
time, is that
does.
true?
It's
Yeah,
part of what.
I always had this. I always had this theory that, we're sitting there fighting each other right now. Okay, it's stupid ideas, and we're like in the backyard fighting each other. Okay, and what's going to stop us from fighting each other and killing each other is to have an extraterrestrial race be recognized all over the world, and that would open up everybody's eyes, saying, "Hey, you know what? I think we should not kill each other because there's something else out there." They go out of the backyard and there's a bigger yard out there with more people. So, we should not, we should embrace that to a point, but be still careful not to just openly embrace anything. But I always said that until there is a recognized ET race by the countries that be, and then all this stuff will still keep going. That's the only thing in my mind that is going to open everybody's eyes at once. I mean, we could talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, but it only goes so far. But when you have a natural ET say, hey, I'm with the United Nations, whatever, a group of people, and they recognize it, then it's gonna make everybody think twice on what they're doing.
Or in addition to do that, in recognizing what's already on the planet, with you and right in front of you, is that, it has to be also inside, feeling and reconciliating all this, built up anger, frustration, um, grief, sadness, guilt, and all these energies, and start to peel off the layers to understand yourself first. Because sometimes I can tell, when we do those podcasts together or interviews, that the people come and there's anger in that energy. Oh, this person said that, or, and there's a defiance behind it. And you have to look into the invitation of all these positive, enlightened intergalactic nations is returning in a place of unity, a place of peace, a place of kindness, a place of benevolence. So the more human beings cultivate and become benevolent on all levels, and that includes in the thought forms, it's going to change the dynamic of what are they here for? What do they want? Why are they allowing all this chaos to happen? Why this? Why that? I pray to them. I want them to give me, all the answers. And it's not really about that. It's about coming back together. It's allowing the human race to rise again in its true authority, in its true celestial divine origins, understanding to a T what a human being is truly about. And then the human race can rise and take its rightful place with the many, many star nations and the alliances and the councils. Yes, we're going to guide you. Yes, we can take you by the hand, but if you bit the hand, attempt to guide you, well, you're going to have to learn from it. Something's going to give here. And human beings, you have to take your power back, really, seriously. So, this is just a bit of Arcturian wisdom here. It just came through me. Some other beautiful question for you, Jeff, are by Cheryl. Are the Ummo telepathic? Do they communicate with each other telepathically, or how do they communicate? What is their form of communications?
No, their form of communication is telepathy. Okay, but for them to come to Earth, they have to have surgery done to their throat because we're not a telepathic race. and they are. So when they come here, if they want to communicate with the people, they get the surgery done to their throat, and so it makes them produce a sound, but it's a low. It sounds like a Hawaiian sound, not like how we have a sharp vocabulary. Yeah, they just it sounds like Lakota and Hawaiian mixed together.
Oh, okay.
You know, but they don't really come here to talk. That's why they have symbols, and we developed an alphabet based on the sound that we hear. Our language that we interpret for them, they don't even use the same type of language. You know, it's what we develop for them so we can understand them a whole lot better. Which they
Yeah,
find that quite interesting, actually.
interesting. Yes, absolutely. Have they talked about to you or to what you've learned from your research and translation of so much information, talking about a little bit about their DNA structure? Are they very, like, do they have a close connection to the human DNA, or in terms of DNA, have they talked about that?
That's in the big book. Their DNA
Oh,
is almost exactly the same as ours. I mean, spot
very
on.
similar.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, because I didn't know a lot about blood types and this and that and the medical stuff. And they explained to me. Now, when they explain it to me, they don't talk to me. Now, that's images. Okay, so I get the image of what they're trying to say. It's faster for them to produce an image than to say, "Hey, you this is what our blood is." They just show. I can get a lot out of an image. There's a lot of information out of one image. So based on that, when I was doing the book, the medical part, I mean, it's worth it for the money. I mean, when you look at these books, it's like there is no fluff in it. It's like, bam, it's information. So it's not for everybody. But if you wanted to learn it, um, it's heavy duty.
Hmm. Heavy duty in what way? What does it mean it's heavy duty?
It's technical stuff, and it goes right into the technical. There's no history on it. It's like if you want to learn it, they start talking about say as an example, talk about space travel. Um, they go right into how space bends, how space moves, it fluctuates, and certain times when the space is constantly moving, it creates a wormhole or what we would call a wormhole, and they would go use that to travel. Doesn't happen at regular times, but they know how the universe is always in flux. We don't see it that way. We just see, darkness and planets, and wow, it's cool. But they don't see it. They see the waves, they see the energies, they see how the electric travels throughout the universe, and then they use that to maneuver everywhere. And the book goes right into it. I mean, it is not. There's no. Sadly, that's not how. That is not how they teach. We have to give like an introduction. Using examples and stuff like that. I mean, they don't teach like that. It's like straight out of the gate. This is how it is. And that big book is a good example of how they think.
Hmm. Beautiful. And where's the book available for people
Oh, it's
interested?
on Amazon. Here, I'll share it with you.
Yeah, let's share to see where the book is available. You want to check it out. Opening your horizon, opening your mind to, out of this world type of teachings and see where it can lead you. We talk about different level of higher living, and we teach a lot within the Arcturian University, how a higher form of living and conscious living. But I'm curious about, there you go,
Here it
the
is.
book coming in. There it is.
Yeah.
So there's two books, correct?
Yeah, the one on the left is just my quick small book, just a quick glimpse of everyday life on there, and some things I had to get permission to put in there um, towards the end. Um, but the one on the right, that's a 700-page book. That's a decent, it's a good resource book, and it was done for the future when the people when they get when they're here and they're walking around, they will refer to these books to get an idea of who they are, and they explain it to a T on everything about people, about blood, time travel, what we call time travel, or not go back in time, but how we can traverse the universe. It explains their planet. It explains it to on every level, so you can get it.
Incredible. That's incredible. And even, can we learn also about their society? How do they live? What is the societal structures for them?
Yeah, I mean they're very religious people too. I mean they believe in God and all that stuff too. So that's got to be a common theme elsewhere. It just doesn't happen here. Because that's not the only race that I've encountered. That believes in something higher than themselves.
Interesting. I love that you said that. So would you say they abide by the universal law of
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, the
There is
law of
a
one.
or universal law or galactic law, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Aside from their like what they call Taos, which is like a bill of rights that they live by, and that's explained in our books too about those. But there's a galactic law, and one of them obviously is the prime directive, how they cannot interfere, with the natural development of a growing society. You
Yeah.
know, that is a natural galactic law. Some other ETs they kind of break that, but as far as the law of the land, that's a real law.
Oh, that will explain also sometimes the frustration people feel like, well, I'm being asking, to the extraterrestrial, the star nations and higher deities, and why don't they come and fix and heal and release all of this for
Yeah,
us? Why are they allowing certain things? What you just said, Jeff, and tied up with this is
yeah,
there is also some natural laws
yeah,
that every sentient consciousness will abide by and says, look, we're not, it's never about being your savior or to create, clean out all the messes behind you. Otherwise, what is the soul have come to learn? And it's interference.
yeah.
So I'm
Everything is learning, learning, learning. Even they learn too. I mean, we never stop learning. That's an inherent trait that the humans have.
Yeah,
Is we
exactly.
love to learn.
Yeah. And also relearning to be in harmony with the universal principle and how we are returning to that place of more universal consciousness rather than, ego based or what I call the personality mental mind, the mind. And,
So understand too that the universe isn't a happy place. I mean, there's some bad entities out there. So we're at that point where we can defend ourselves. So that's part of actually evolving to there, because we need that. We need that that inert ability to fight, defend, all that stuff. That's part of it all.
brings me back to their history. So I'm going to come back to see, do you know how old that civilization is, the Ummo? How long they've been around?
Tens of thousands of years at least. Very
Ancient.
long time. Very, very long time. They've gone through many different renditions of years. Their years last like 600. Then they start over again. Like a
Oh,
like a, like a generation is 600 years. What we would call years. We would say a generation is 10 years.
Right.
Okay, then the next generation is another 10 years, but they
Right.
go 600, then they start over again after the 600th year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So a generation for them is 600 years. You're part of the same generation.
yeah,
It's something like a cycle, and then the next one comes after the next 600 years, and then you go on like this, correct?
yeah. No, now they also know too that generations are divided up. Sometimes it's 200 years, 300, 400, depending on the um, lack of a better term, depending on the singularity that happens to them. Um, when a singularity happens, like a major awareness happens throughout whatever the planet, and everybody buys into it, and that starts another generation. And, you could be at 232, then this singularity happens, and you start over again, using that singularity as part of your living. Or you can just go up to 600 and not have a generational awareness. You know, what we would call a singularity, they would call like a generational awareness that they adapt to their society.
Generation, I like that generational awareness.
Yeah,
I like that a lot. It feels very inclusive to bring all of those a part of that generational awareness.
yeah. This way they can kind of keep track of their growth abilities. If one Ummo was back in the second generational awareness, then you know what time frame he's from. It's just a little different how other ETs think and how they keep track of stuff.
Helps all of us to unwind from the limitation of time. Here, it's everything is limiting in time. It's feel like we're stuck in that loop of time, linear, with your past and you're here, but you're uncertain about the future. This projection, this stipulation, and so I feel like it's help all, everyone on the planet and the Earth herself to release ourselves from the limitation of time or these time loops. So that's really interesting. There's a question for you, Jeff. Kathy is asking who or what groups lead the Humo like they're willing to guide us. Is there another group or another consciousness that lead Umo or guide them, who have been guiding them in their evolution, like they come here and helping to bring their teaching and their guidance?
What groups lead the Umo like they're willing to guide us?
Yeah, good question.
Um, I don't know that answer specifically. I do know that the Umo is here to guide, but that's not their mission. That's not what they're here for. They're here to help us along, but that's not their mission. The mission is to um, monitor, make sure we don't destroy the earth. That could be maybe guide us. I don't know, but I really don't know how to answer that question there.
Well, and maybe we can go back to the statement when you said that they're religious. They have belief system, they believe in a higher authority. Um, I'm
You know,
sure that
that
was that
when they were evolving, they had
right?
an outside race come to do the same thing. They had an outside race come. They interacted with their robots, whatever, androids for about 30, 40 years, and until they felt it was safe to show themselves to the Umo. And they helped them go out to space and explore the universe and explain to them the ways of the universe. So they kind of like want to do that same thing here.
You know,
Wait,
where was that?
you were I said you were cutting out there for a minute.
Who was that group that came to the Humo to watch them, observe them, and then help them to guide
Well,
in their evolution?
it was it was something like the Dokia.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have not found any reference to them um, outside of what the Ummo suggests. So
What are they saying about them?
they what are they what do they do?
What are they saying about this race who came to them?
Yeah, the Ummo was just figuring out how to get into space, and their technology was advancing like ours was, and they obviously were monitored by this one race to a point that they felt it was time for interaction to help them along. They were at a a, a point where it was okay for them to show them the ways of the world, the ways of the universe. But I am sure that the Umo had, they had to spiritually come to an agreement within themselves to accept them to begin with and not kill them. But that's why they sent that robot out to interact with them to make sure that, yeah, these people are ready. Okay, now we can bring the race in.
You got me very curious about this, my friend. So what did you mean by they send a robot? It's like a sentinel? Is there
What we
a
would call a
communicator
robot.
device?
I mean, it could be if you watch Star Trek, it could be like a data, like an android,
Hmm.
to help them interact, to explain to them uh, the ways of the universe.
Okay. And that's
Now,
kind of
when they mention that in their letters. Now, keep in mind this was early '60s when they were getting these letters, so they had to explain it to them, to the Spanish people, the typist, and he had to put it down in such a way that made sense to him, which the term robot came from, because android wasn't a term back then, you know. So what do you call it?
right,
Well, a robot, and then that's what they used. So it was the interpretation of that time. We have to look beyond that interpretation and actually figure out what the Umo was trying to explain to the typist. That's hard if you can find the original letters.
right. I can imagine. This played like what, thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah, I mean that typist was probably so blown away that he didn't know how to explain it.
Mm. I mean, it's incredible to see how evolution, how everything is tied up as always. An ancient race helping a younger race evolve and how,
Well, I
and
mean, if it happens to them, and this was in our time frame thousands of years ago, I would think that that would be the common way that they do it. They would send out a sentinel or something like that to make your contact and then report back. And is it are these guys ready? No, they're not. Okay, we'll just stand back, and we'll come back a little later.
right.
That has to be some sort of common thread that they use. You know.
I can understand that the principle of, sending a first level of connections or interactions, which is scouting to see where is the consciousness of that civilization or that species or of that planet, like a probe or something like that. Yeah, I
Right.
can. Yeah.
Just like we do with Voyager 1 spacecraft, we send out probes and they
Yeah.
report back. It's got to be the same.
I can appreciate that. Yeah. No, it's do you know what dimension the Humo come from, or what dimension are they vibrating the most at?
Oh, they're at the third dimension. They're just like us.
They're the third dimensional base. I don't think they're as in dualistic polarization state as it is here, though.
Well, all I know is that they can walk the earth, and they can be here and eat. They sleep. They do a lot of stuff that we do. Um, I don't think they're like the I don't think they're like the Bigfoot that can go in between dimensions at will. I don't think they do that because if they did, then they wouldn't need a craft to travel it.
What do you mean by that?
Um, well, have you ever seen a Bigfoot craft?
Oh, Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They don't use crafts. They just go in and they phase out of here and go into their own other dimension. But the Umo, they have to have craft. And I got actual video of one of their crafts, actually two of their crafts that buzz the International Space Station. And then this footage came from somebody over in Europe that sent it to me. And I broke it down, broke it down, and of course I didn't believe him, But on the bottom of their craft is their emblem that they use. I think I have it. Hang on, let me check. Hang on one second. Here it is.
I want to see that. I'm curious here.
Yeah. See, craft looks like that. Okay.
Okay.
And this is a cutaway that I made.
Oh, okay. Come in.
So you can kind of like see,
Yeah.
this there, but on the bottom of the craft is their emblem.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Like a
And,
symbol?
yeah, there is a symbol just like that. And it always intrigued me, like, who in the hell does that? I don't know of any other extraterrestrials that put their insignia on their craft. We do.
What
We
is
put it on
point?
planes and stuff like that for different countries. But why would they do it? But in this video capture, I slowed it down, sliced it down, and it's there. I'm like, God damn, two of them right by the International Space Station, same shape, same everything, same emblem. So I started researching just the emblem, and come to find out that there were many people that reported it, but whatever. People can report it. I need something else. Well, there was a pilot in Spain that was going to land, and they were approaching the runway, and they looked up, and there's the Ummo craft right above them, just hanging there. He described everything: the emblem on the bottom, the size, the shape, everything. And when he landed, he actually reported it, and they published it. And so that's pretty credible. I don't think he would just say that just out of the blue. I'm going to report an Ummo craft, and he knew exactly what it was. So there's got to be something to that, you know. And I know that our government has captured photos of them. They've captured it on their had a cruiser that was over in the Atlantic Ocean, and they filmed it. And I know what film they used. I know what camera they used in the cruiser. So there's got to be something to that.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for showing us that make
Yeah,
that graph. Let's give us a good idea in terms of the size and everything. So coming back to them, you mentioned, Jeff, that they eat, like human being here eat. Do they have a special diet?
yeah. Everything is like a mush diet. Um,
Which,
they everything they don't eat like we do, like meat and
mm,
stuff, but they eat like plants. They do eat meat, but it's like eating a small chicken, because they don't have molars like we do to grind. They got pointy teeth, so they rip their food. And
mm,
but they suck a lot of the food because it's easier for them to digest it. It's already there. We have enzymes that break the food down. They don't have that. So when they come here, they have their own food, but they can eat fruits. They love fruits like pears, stuff like that, mushy stuff. Peaches. They love peaches. And they had tried. There was a report in Madrid that they were being watched by another enthusiast. There's three of them, and they were trying different foods, and they came across mashed potatoes. Well,
Oh,
they recognized the mashed potato, but they were trying to bite it, and they ended up using a spoon to put it in their mouth because they didn't know how to eat mashed potatoes.
oh, that's a good point. No, that's a really good point, especially if their dental structure is different, um,
Yeah,
from the human dental, so they may not have the same ability to, or the digestive enzymes, which is a really good point.
yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, it's the very unique differences about the.
Like I said, they're the same, but they're a little different. They don't smoke, obviously. They thought when they first came here that there was something wrong with the air. That's what the robots were out there looking at people with these things in their mouth, and they thought that, well, there's something wrong with the air because they're breathing through these straws, like, but it's actually a
Yeah,
cigarette. But they didn't know that, but they thought, because everybody was smoking back then. That was the thing, and then come to find out it was a cigarette. There's nothing wrong with the air.
yeah, it's because they probably their interpretation of a foreign device that looks like a
Right,
tube
right,
that you suck in oxygen and release
right.
something.
Yeah.
They don't understand cigarette. Yeah, it's here. It's not on their planet. So
And they're like, why are you doing that to your body? Your body doesn't need that, but, you know, we're still kind of a, barbarian in race still, so.
they have a barbarian imprint. Is that what you said?
Yeah, kind of barbaric, what we do to our body, they don't do, you know.
They think that human beings have a barbaric relationship to their body.
Oh, yeah.
That okay.
Yeah, like, when they watch, when we play football, as an example, they're just like mystified, like, what's the point of running into each other? I don't understand. you know, well, that's how we do it.
So there probably some behavior here that is very foreign to them and they don't
Oh
understand why,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
They don't
I
they don't
that
get it. They don't understand baseball. They don't get hockey. They don't get it. You know.
yes, believe me, I can relate to that.
Yeah. I just find it funny that just the difference. But they have their sports that I think are kind of dumb too, but they just like it. Whatever. It's a different. It's different.
Give us an example.
Well, when they would, one of their things that they like to do, which is in my small book, is that they would, what I would call like a paint gun, what we call a paint gun, but to them it's like a gun that shoots like a purple berry, and the idea is you get somebody to lay on the ground or up against a stone or something wall, and then they shoot the outline of the person, and you try to get it as close as you can without hitting them. Well, if you hit the person, oh well, but that's what they do for fun. I mean, that's one of the dumbest things I ever heard of. But they enjoy stuff like that.
Fascinating. Well, of course, we have to realize that their idea of pleasure or entertainment will be very different from the reality we're in here.
The technicality of getting it so close to you without touching you, that's hard to do. Not me. I would just shoot the person. Boom, 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 boom. I win. But they don't do that. It's just different. It's just different.
That's wonderful to see how another species or another civilizations, evolving. So it feels to me a parallel to the third dimensional reality that we're in here. Would
Hmm.
that be accurate to say?
Yeah. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, they really like they got a. You think our dogs have a good sense of smell? They have a tremendous sense of smell.
Oh,
So they make perfumes at different
they
scents.
do.
Oh yeah, and it's like, who can make the best perfume? Who don't give a shit about perfume? I don't care about that. but it's highly prized to them who can get the right smell and whatever. You don't like football, but you would smell the perfume. It's just different.
Yes, yes, yes. It's fascinating to learn again another reflection of who we are through the eyes of these beautiful entities. So, a question that's been asked a few times is, do they reproduce the same way as humans, or do they?
Yeah, yeah. That's why there's always two males that go with the female because we're very close biologically, very very close. But to them, it's more sacred. I mean, they have to they actually make time to do that. You know, where they're not as animalistic as we are. They they get spiritually going first and meditate to each other, and then they get into the state of oneness, and then they would have sex, like we would call it.
It sounds to me that they have a very high communion and sacred approach to reproduction.
Yeah, there's only one room in their uh, place that they do that. It's dedicated specifically for that.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's interesting. Another question that we receive here is that how do they approach, their well-being? Do they have the ability to rejuvenate their body? Do they have practitioners or doctors like here on the planet?
They have a doctors there, but they use plants. They know that plants cure everything. So
Yes.
um, they had mentioned, or not mentioned, they had shown me this thing called black seed oil and say get the black seed oil. They use black seed oil over there.
Oh,
I didn't know. I never heard of black seed oil, until I'd done the book. I didn't know anything about black seed oil. Well, then come to find out, we have black seed oil here. We only get it from one area of the world, but it gets produced. You can buy it on Amazon, and I take that every day.
interesting. And what is the properties of the black seed oil?
It prevents a lot of ailments. Believe it or not, I take it every day. I haven't been sick probably in what 7 years. By taking, I attribute it to the black seed oil.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, what I see, we're learning something. So, is it appropriate to say that their planet may resemble or be very close to what the Earth is in terms of
Very close.
fauna?
And very close in size, shape, density.
That's it.
Similar to water. They know how to manage water like we do. They don't have stores like we do. When we go to the store and buy it, put it in a refrigerator. They don't have nothing like that. To them, they're connected to a main storehouse. And if you wanted to eat, then you would, they use sound to get their food. Is underground pipe systems that bring the food to your house.
Oh, yeah,
So it's pretty fresh, and everybody draws from the store to get their food. They eat 3 times a day, and they call it meal one, meal two, meal three.
oh, well, there we go. Practical, right? One, two, three.
1, 2, 3, and they don't have chairs. They like the Japanese, just sit on the ground, and the thing opens up on the floor, and then everything comes up, and then you eat your different ones, and that's it.
Exactly. And so, like to Adrian's observation, it sounds like an advanced version of the Earth. How the atmospheric composition of
Um,
the
it's
planet.
it's a little bit thinner there that I can remember what they said. It's slightly hotter, but it's pretty consistent. They don't have a precession like Earth does. Okay, so it's a constant all the way around. Their planet spins, but there's no seasons.
Oh, there's no season. Okay.
It just spins. That's why there's one landmass on Ummo. So everybody lives on the one landmass. Whereas here they're like, what the hell happened to that? How did you guys get so many different ones separated by water?
Yeah.
They
So,
didn't see that. They never see that before.
one land mass, and everything else is water.
Yeah, yeah, it is a water planet.
It's a water planet, exactly. Okay, and it's located in the Virgo constellation, correct? How far is it from the Earth? Do we know?
It's about, from what we measure, about 41 light years. But they with the way that the universe is always twisting, and they can get here in about 4 to 6 days, what we would call days. It doesn't take long. When everything is, twisted and they come together, they whoop, go. And then they're here in no time.
Yeah. Well, for sure they have different technology to come to travel. Do they have any type of like animals or other life forms?
Yeah, they have like a something that looks like a flying bird that's kind of heavy. That's where their meat comes from, and they can trap it, and then they would eat it. I don't think they cook it. They don't like cooked food. It messes with their intestinal, so they
Mhm.
eat the raw meat. There's not a whole lot of meat on there. There's an ape like um, uh, ape like uh, ape like monkey there, I guess you could say, that lives on the outskirts of the civilization. That actually they're friends with them, but they're still in the wild. They look like it's basically their white hair. They look like an orangutan and a gorilla mix,
Oh, okay.
but they communicate with it, which is interesting.
With each other?
Yeah,
Oh, nice. Okay.
they communicate with everything. They communicate with the birds and stuff, and there's a couple snakes there, and I'm sure there's other things there that I'm not aware of. But these are the ones that they make known.
Right.
But they're in tune to a lot of the stuff there, which we're
Mhm.
not here yet.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. So since they are so water-based and they have no season, or do they have a lot of sunshine or sunlight, or is it overcast, or do you
It's like
know?
an overcast. It's like over here we got the Canadian wildfires. So it's kind of like a dim orange at certain times, and kind of hazy. That's what it is like over there. I mean, it's a nice place to visit, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to live there.
Appreciate, there's nothing like this planet. The Earth is really unique in beauty and floral and everything. And another good question here, do they have a lifespan like here on the planet, like a physical lifespan?
Oh, of course they do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're a couple years, a couple hundred years, because they would probably have. We would probably have the same normal lifespan if it wasn't for the fact that the food we eat is killing us, and our environment that we live in kills us too. They don't have that. They don't have smog. They don't have, you know, foods that are, made up to serve millions of people. They don't have that. A lot of their stuff is natural, so they live longer because of it.
More natural and more in tune with the environment. So I'm gonna
They
make a
they eat to be satisfied. They don't eat to be full and wasteful.
and wasteful, that they're more mindful of the resources.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
that mindfulness, and people don't have also the dark light polarity. draconian reptilians and negative AI and grace that wants to push us down.
No,
Yeah, here
they
it's
got rid
been
of that thousands of years ago.
oh, good, good, good. They got rid of that thousands of years ago, and they have restored a natural lifespan, organic way of living with our planet.
Yeah, I mean the Ummo is a formidable force out there. I mean nobody wants to mess with an Ummo, So I mean they do get mad sometimes too. I mean they get angry like some of we do, but they're in control of their feelings a lot.
Mm. Oh,
But
they have emotions.
of course they do. Yeah,
Yeah, but they seem to be more in control, more in tune, rather than to be run by their emotions, right?
yeah. Hey, you know what? We're getting kind of late. I wanted to play that audio tape too.
Okay, it's a bit muffled, everyone, but just
It
bear
is
with
pretty
us.
muffled, but this is
So,
okay. Here
what
we
is
go.
the audio you're gonna play, Jeff?
This was in Spain,
Okay.
and let me get the transcript here. Okay, this was in Spain, and this is in Spanish, so you probably won't quite get it. But I'll play it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now I'm going to share a screen here of what it was all about.
Okay, perfect. Let's take a look at the screen about what this recording was about. Right, here
Okay,
we go.
I can't make this any bigger than that, can I? No. But you can
That,
see here that in Spanish, this is what it was in black. Okay. And then, I mean, it took me quite a while to get every word. And this is what it was said in English. It was to my brothers, don't ask questions, questions, questions. Your brothers gathered at their home to my brothers. We beg your forgiveness. We beg your forgiveness, sir. Communication disconnected. Senior disconnected.
hmm,
Now, this was a meeting that they had set up at this guy's house, Senior Francisco Donis, and it was a spur of the moment type thing. So when they recorded it, it was on a obviously was on a tape that they had ready, but they were not ready to record it. So that's why it's kind of muffled like that. They didn't know that they were being recorded, but it is interesting because of course I don't whatever sure. um I wanted to make sure that well, how do we know that it was an Umo, and not just somebody else faking it. Well, I use a program called Gold Wave, and let me stop sharing this here. And using the Gold Wave, I was able to pinpoint the way that they talk. Come on. Okay, here you can see um, when they now this is the left channel, right channel. Okay, and Vivian, I don't know if you can move the bottom up.
Oh,
You can see that when they talk, see all these flat lines? That's very mechanical.
okay.
Okay, and when the humans talk here at the bottom, I can't move that banner up. When we talk, the audio fades away because our language starts out and then gets peaky, then eventually goes back down. Like the bottom graph explains how a human would talk. And I zoomed in on it, checked it, double checked it, checked it, and double checked it, and I'll be a son of a gun. If my findings is that it is a real mechanical voice that they had done to their throat. Let me see if I can get this. I can't get this up any higher. But you can see down here how the regular person would talk, and you see how it's all chunky here and flat topped. Can you see the difference?
Okay. Yes, we can see. So it's human speech versus Humo speech we're looking at
Yeah,
in the
this is the
different.
Ummo speech on top here. This is Ummo, and this is like a human voice down here. And you can see how our voice trails away, comes up and then trails away. And theirs is very abrupt stop, rises up, abrupt stop, and it just flattened across the top.
It reflect the difference in terms of the way they speak the Humo versus recognizing a more human language or tones or phonetics and all of this, correct?
Yeah, because of the work they get done with their throat, it sounds mechanical
Right.
to
Right.
us. Okay, because they don't have the wave of our speech. You know,
It may be perceived as a robotic speech. It doesn't mean it is robotic, but here
right?
it will be perceived as is, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Now you
Okay.
got it.
There's a distinction here, everyone.
Yeah. And let's see. I did have another. Okay, let me see if I can share this one too. I know we're getting close to the end. I got to do this quick.
Okay. And what is it you want to share with us?
And this
Okay.
explains what a glottis is and all the work that they had to do to change all the intricacies down here in the bottom, right here. That's the work that they get done in order for them to create a speech. And they feel fortunate that when they get this done, they feel fortunate that they get this so they can come over here.
Wow. So physically, the anatomy looks a lot like very close to a human being, except that there's difference based on the planet they evolved in, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're not crystalline based, they're more like organic based. So
Yeah. So yeah. So that was a rarity. That's the only known Ummo recording that I know of.
incredible. Absolutely incredible. Jeff, very grateful. We all are so grateful for your dedication, your work, what you do, your presence. Absolutely phenomenal. And so I'm going to invite everyone to rewatch this podcast and really tune in the soul energies of who the Umo is, their planet that is very in symbiotic connections with here, but the differences and how they're an inspiration about inspiring us to step up in our evolution. So on that note, I want to say that we're going to take a short break on the Infinite Star Connection podcast because Peter and I are going to be traveling to Germany. I'm going to be speaking at Anya's conference called the Star Earth Conference. And Anya is, of course, a right arm directly connected to Omnek of the Venusian nation. So I'm going to be in Germany from July 3rd to the 6th for the conference. And then we're going to stay longer to have our own retreat. And this is the Arcturian University retreat. I want to invite you to join the live stream. We're going to be live streaming, and I'm going to share my screen right now. So this is us, the annual retreat. It is in person. Is for the members of our Octa University only. But at the same time, you're welcome to sign up for the live stream. And we're going to do a complete different higher dimensional timeline of work, working with the European new morphogenetic field and the new grid system coming through on the planet. So the link to join us is right here. Click on it and sign up to be part of the live stream. And we're really ushering a complete new paradigm of reality. And so we're going to be there in Germany. So when we come back, we're going to be back live here on the Infinite Star Connection podcast on Sunday, July 20th. So Sunday, July 20th, we're coming back here together. I'll share about the experience with the with Dragon Nations, with the grids, the morphogenetic field, on the star nations coming in, and I'll share with you what took place, what messages may have come, and we'll go deeper. And then we're going to have also more guests coming through. We have Sabine Poncelet from Dubai coming back, talking about our own intergalactic connections and the animal kingdom and how she's have an incredible life story. And we want to also invite an Aboriginal tribe from Colombia known as the Mamos, who are going to come here and share their wisdom with us as well. So there's so much more to come. So thank you for holding space as we returning on July 20th, 2025, of course. In the meantime, a big thank you to you, Jeff. It's been absolutely incredible, your presentation today. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you guys for listening. Hope it wasn't too boring.
Oh, it's very fascinating. You're amazing. You're amazing. All right, everyone. Stay in your light. Much gratitude. And we will be back here very soon. So there's more to come.